Okay, so this is how to find your business model. So again, like Alistair, I'm going to congratulate you for being in the real hard work. This is going to be a workshop. We're going to flex our muscles. We might even stand. But I've been doing this work a long time. And the one thing I've noticed, looking at like 10,000 business model stories, getting my 10,000 hours in Excel badge, thank you, Microsoft, is that business modeling is really just a game. So if you want to dash out of here and catch me later, TLDR, you are living in a simulation. This is a game. How you die in this game is you punt on the business model. You don't think about it. You build first, you monetize later. How you get ahead in this game, the business modeling part, it's vital decisions that lead to actions that unlock not just one business model, but multiple. The big, long, enduring tech titans of today, we're going to take a look at how many business models they tend to accrue, like a giant Katamari for those that have played that game. Your reserves in this game, it's not ammo, it's courage to the power of luck over capital, but courage over capital when you look at that ratio. And how you win in this game, it is not how much money you make. It is not your valuation. It is not even an early profitable exit. It's becoming game designers yourself, seeing the system's levers, taking on the Goliaths, building a world with intended consequences. Okay, let's begin. So first, I'm going to at least talk about the fact that we're living in a simulation. So I'm Jen Vandermeer. I'm a business model designer. My view into this world came from a strange entry point into the startup sphere. I actually walked in through the Wall Street door in the early 90s. One of the first companies I covered was Netscape. They're considered the patient zero of business modeling as an action sport. I later went into tech myself. I was in the dot-com, fun little bump there. Still, we haven't even gotten to that peak yet. I was in an IPO that, collapsed, but that company still exists. I hung out in those hard years at Frog Design and learned the kind of systems thinking and design approaches to this world, and then went through a series of startups myself and those little Pac-Mans or acquisitions. And I've been hanging out, consulting in a lifestyle business and teaching ever since. But know that I've been through those other curves as well. Today, we're going to look at patterns. The way you exceed as a business model designer is become a pattern matcher. It's the thing that VCs say they do, looking at 1,000 companies a year to pick the one that they might bring to their partner meeting. You kind of have to start doing this as well and seeing business models everywhere. We're going to do a growth map. It's going to help you make these decisions that get you to progress through the game. Some of you've got paper and you can sketch. Some of you can do this in Keynote or Google Slides or PowerPoint if you want. And we're at Startupfest, so you can take a stick and just draw this in the mud if you want. Okay, so it's going to look like something like that. So first, I'm going to, like Alistair, go way back in time, but further back, and look at the archaeology of business models. Business models are hard to get your head around. Simple definitions, they're like Zen koans. But really, we have to kind of think of it in the thousands and thousands of years of human history. So there was the time when the earth was water. There were no business models, none. And then there were single-celled organisms that crawled onto the early land. Still no business models, none to be found. There was all of that time, and then we domesticated the animal, or at least our animals domesticated other animals. That's the start, but still no business models. But it's kind of when it all began. It was really 1100 CE when the very first financialization of agriculture was born. And the reason I'm pointing all of this out, why is it relevant? The simulation part is that we often talk about how startups are cool and they're moving fast in these emergent, complex ways. And they're disrupting the industrial era, taking it down, all that factory mindset, mechanistic, control dynamics. But really, all of this stuff is built upon thousands of years before that of agriculture, the land, the context that we're in, the geographies they're in, the nation states, and many years of modeling, financial thinking, of projecting, simulating, and predicting a future and drawing a sphere of possibility and constraining what's possible. So know that that's the starting point. for any business modeling is that all of the work that's done before, of all of the humans before, who can only see the possibility of what they've already experienced. So the common eras of business modeling, the agricultural area where the game was survival, the financial era, discounted cash flow. It's a concept still used in many investment decisions, but even in some startup decisions. It shouldn't be. That should be a flag. Where portfolio performance was the idea. Industrial era, supply economies of scale, the eyeball monetization era of advertising and engagement, and now we're in the common era of recurring revenue. The everything as a service, where the kind of KPIs of high retention rates and this CAC LTV ratio are what predominate today. But simulation has been running alongside. Okay, Alistair talked a lot about Netflix. I'll tell you an earlier story that they actually did a VHS trial just to see if it would work, but it kind of failed. So we think about something like Netflix. It's a beautiful recurring revenue model. Looks like it came out of nowhere. Nice idea, but really it's built on logistics and operations. And what they wrote in that first little wave of growth was going from almost few people having DVDs and DVD players, for those old enough to remember them, and wrote an incredibly fast adoption wave. So one lesson of business models is you're riding other people's business models. And then they did the shift into streaming after Netflix did, after Blockbuster did. Why? Because they're just better at timing. And then they did that content acquisition and then rode the wave of global mobile adoption. So part of your work as business modelers is to look for business modelers that you can piggyback, like those little birds that live on top of rhinos. Your work as a startup isn't just to kind of stare at a blank page, a blank canvas, and start wrecking the universe. Sometimes it's to look for places to feed off of before you grow. This is the eyeball engagement era. Started in the late 90s is when I first heard the term, how are we going to monetize all those eyeballs? Kind of gross. But it's what actually went into, back then we actually wrote 25-page business plans to get funding before decks became popular. And you see a lot of activity. Facebook had a lot of momentum, more momentum than we'd ever seen before. A flurry of incredible growth. And all of those little moves are mostly product moves. They're not business model moves. They tried to launch payments early on. They tried to launch credits. They bought some products. They've launched some products, Oculus, Portal, and most recently, they're trying to get payments again, but it's for the third time. So what you see here is a company who built first, monetized later. And so if you get advice to do that, remember it's coming from someone who's already lived through that past, maybe even profited from it, but know that that era is actually over. Why? Because Google and Facebook own most of that market, but also because we learned something interesting after the financial crash. What did we learn? The companies that became very strong in that really hard time of 2008, 2009, 2010, Slack, Airbnb, Uber, Zoom, they knew to go for proof of revenue first and recurring revenue to boot. Also talking about Zoom again. Why? Because it is a kind of a beautiful developer technical story. A lead engineer in charge of WebEx, he became kind of ashamed by how many of his customers hated the product, and he knew how to fix it, but couldn't seem to fix it in the current company, in the current technical system. So he leaves, he raises funding, and he builds the perfect tech. But it wasn't just a tech execution story. He made the business model decision of SaaS. It seemed like actually not as easy at the time. Now it seems obvious. And then an incredible partnership strategy, accelerated massive growth by partnering with Redboot, InFocus, Logitech, later on Polycom, Ingram Micro. Massive user adoption. These are the business model strategic moves that unlocked incredible growth. And then now we're going to see these massive business model combinators. I can't even do justice on one slide. It's kind of ugly when you try to put all of Amazon, all of Alibaba, all of Tencent. But just know that there's approximately 27 business models in there. This is, you compare it back to Facebook, really simple. It's just advertising. That's about it. And then we look at something like Amazon, where you have all of these different business models. Amazon Web Services, infrastructure pay-per-use, selling old school books, media company, advertising, marketplaces, logistics as a service, everything as a service. It goes on and on. Now healthcare and insurance. So know that you're in a simulation. Hopefully this will relieve you a bit. There's something about business modeling that makes people nervous, like you're staring into some kind of like a death, because you are, because it's the reason why you're most likely to die. So try to loosen it up a bit by knowing that you're designing a model of real or imagined futures. And you're just conducting experiments. But your first job is to choose your simulation wisely. Okay, so how you die, and then we're going to jump into the workshop bit. How you die before you begin is to punt on the business model. So all models are wrong, but some are useful. So if you tell me it's too early to work on the business model, I don't think that's this crowd, because you're here. But some believe this. I work with accelerators around the world, and I'm often told, please go away. Come back when we're ready. We're not ready for this business modeling stuff yet. We need to code more. We need to develop more. We need to grab attention first. We need to prove our value proposition. And I say, don't worry, all models are wrong, but they're useful. So let's just do the useful part. Every model is wrong because every model is a simplification of reality. Many of us old folks lived through this in the late 90s when we took all concepts and threw them on the internet and assumed the 7 or 8 billion people in the world would adopt it and said, the internet will take this idea of dog food and make it into a multi-billion-dollar company. Turns out that model was too simple. But was it really wrong? If we look now, Chewy, other companies have finally followed through on that. What became true is that we revealed the mechanisms underneath that would have to be for real. People actually had to be on the internet. We didn't have that many back then. Logistics had to be sorted out. All of these concepts of digital marketing, cost of customer acquisition, the lifetime value. We weren't really thinking about those ideas and leverage points back then. If you look at the business model graveyard, it's mostly companies like Juicero, Quirky, in the old days, Webvan, that were digital models that seemingly oversimplified old school, physical, industrial era models, like making air conditioners, making juice machines, making wearables, but forgetting that there was actual cost in those business models in the form of things, of atoms that had to be figured out in scale. So I'm going to do a little audience questioning. Business modeling is hard, but why? What are some things? I have some answers I've been collecting on the way. I'll repeat if you tell me the answer. Have you tried this? What have you found to be hard? Yes. It's time consuming. Yes, it is. What else? Yeah. You're monetizing the wrong problem, potentially. Yeah, what else? Yeah, if you're coming into a new market and you're really creating a new thing, there's no comparison. So it's hard to talk to them about the new thing. Yes? Yes, the idea maze. All of the things you have to play in your mind. It gets kind of heavy on the mind. Yeah, moving parts. It's a living document. It's never done. Never. You will never done. If you really, we'll take a look again. You just saw Amazon. They're never done. Yeah. You don't know what you don't know. You don't. And so that's part of this. It's just this is like a Zen act. It's a creative energy. It's actually spend less time in Excel and more time contemplating the universe. More time sitting on those pink fat boy things out there, chilling out. And when you go to bed at night, don't put on a podcast. Think about your business model. And then wake up, and you'll find that some of those interconnected, confusing parts might have been resolved. Okay, these are really good answers. I like your answers. Here are some of the things I hear when I'm being shooed away from accelerators who are foisting me on early stage founders. I need to collect data first. I'll hire someone to do that. I'm the technical founder. It's very common, especially in universities, PhDs. I'm going to build first, monetize later. They're still operating off of the business weeks of 1999. They want to build something that people love first. Who wants to stop them? That sounds so beautiful. Because They're going to die. Okay. So don't just love. Model your business. This is a famous CB Insights, gets around. What's nice about it, different than previous speaker Alistair's data, is this is founder-reported reasons for failure, not validated or verified by the actual investors. But as you can see, most of them are business model reasons, especially the top bits. No market need, business model error. Ran out of cash, oh, you didn't model the business. Outcompeted, cost issues. Product without a business model, thank you for stating it clearly. Pivot gone bad, business model problem, choosing the wrong model, then choosing the wrong model again. Legal challenges, failure to pivot. Just another form of pivot. So you don't see technical failure in here. Technical failure is not ever cited by founders themselves as the reason for failure, even if at the very beginning the development feels like the most daunting part. Okay, so we still have to really reflect on this when you're walking around today. Why do we all punt on the business model? So not everybody started with the business model first. I sometimes get in these rooms. There are many companies that built, but it's so easy to pile on Facebook, right? Just know that your job is not to delegate the business model. So I'm not saying that Facebook is not a financial powerhouse of a company. They do have, I think, 1/4 of the world as daily active users. But know that they kind of grew up as a build first, delegate later company in two parallel parts, separate parts. The technical stuff operated very differently from the advertising bits, which means they don't feel like the company's fully in control of itself. Would you say that's true? Yeah. Does that make us feel a little uneasy? Some people. And so this is, again, just a kind of reminder that even companies that build first, monetize later, technical first, the riches come, all that field of dreams metaphor, it's kind of awesome when it happens, but know that it might create some conditions that are not so great to replicate should you happen to get 1/4 of the world paying attention to you every day. Okay, so no punting on the business model. We all agree? I'm getting still some weak assents. Okay, some good ones. So you are in a simulation. Now we're going to talk about some of the controls in this environment. Some of them that are already here, and then the ones, of course, that you're going to design yourself. So how do you progress in this game? It's vital decisions leading to actions that unlock new models. I have, for those that want to follow along, reasonstreet.co/find-model. If you want to take a look, and you can find me later, and all this stuff is up there. But here's some examples of actions. I've kind of reduced the actions of 200 startups from tiny companies to big tech companies. And there's actually just a handful of strategy moves, actions, verbs: promote, collect, develop, found, reorganize. There's all little subsets, and a lot of it is technical product development that I don't count because that's just assumed. Develop is the primary muscle in all of this stuff. And there are many different business models. They are not mutually exclusive. This is not a science. It is a narrative process. Business models exist in the minds of the people who value businesses. You, the founder, who have to evaluate, you're the primary evaluator. Any investor you might convince along the way. Your future employees who need to be convinced to join you. Your partner at home, your dog who needs dog food. All of these creatures need to be able to understand how it is that you make money, if nothing else than to help you tell the story, to help you find the next customer and the next backer. I'll give you a tiny company. I did the big companies. Let's look at Tibber. It's a company I met in Norway. Spotify for power. Clever. Simple. I think easy to understand. But wait, power? Yes, in Norway, AI-powered energy is a real thing. To give people transparency and choice. They can actually pick energy suppliers on a minute-by-minute basis. I don't know. Can you do that in Canada? Sure can't do that in New York, where I'm from. Pretty cool. So they could literally do anything with that original idea. Some powerhouse developers, a really interesting market they come from. Tiny little country, only 4 million people or something like that. I'm probably getting that wrong. But teeny tiny. And so they could have expanded. They could have gone international. They could have built some big energy system. And they explore. They're part of a great accelerator. It gets them to travel the world and figure out expansion plans. They go back home and they say, you know what? All of those options we explored. Massive expansion overseas, set up a sales office in another part of the world. we're going to just double down and focus. We think Norway is the best test case market. Maybe we can even create a market if we show the world how powerful this is. So they get their 10,000 home users. They launch electric car charging. So as electric cars are starting to be very predominant in Norway. And they get to 40,000. So these are kind of small relative to those like Paul Graham metrics, but close enough. And then they're off into the races. So this is an early stage decision to just focus and make the strategic actions narrower, to not spread thin. Another thing you hear in the lean circles all the time. Focus, narrow, take things off the plate. Okay, so now we're all going to start this on our own. So I hope this exercise helps you deal with some of that cognitive overload, mostly by deciding what you do now, what you do later, and what's an option for growth. So I have a fictional company, Blurg. They're a behavioral science platform for people who live in co-ops in New York City. This is probably a nonsense idea, but that's okay. They're going to figure that out. Try not to dissuade people at their first moment. So how many of you have tried this business model canvas type thing? Everybody's gone to the blank slate? Okay, wow, interesting. Not everybody, but a majority of the room. So you try to figure out your value proposition, your customer segments. I mean, the great thing about this canvas is that it democratized the idea of business modeling. It's not just for Excel jockeys like myself. I actually got a little nervous when this thing came out. I thought my power was being taken from me. I liked my 10,000 hours in Excel, Girl Scout badge. But it freed us up to think. It's not just revenue, it's not cost. It's all of the stuff that happens above. How customers need to be there, and value propositions. And it's not just something a financier can tinker with to generate cash flows. So our team sits down and they do something like this. I don't know if you've experienced this as well. Like so many ideas at the beginning, so many customer segments, so many value propositions, multiple markets, B2B, B2C, direct to consumer, maybe a physical product, maybe an app. I see some of you nodding. Maybe some of you are already just so darn focused and it's beautiful. And they say, okay, now what do we do first? So they get some business model advice by Googling for it. And they hear something about lean and they decide to focus. And so, okay, I'm just going to track on my own little map here. They develop their data analytics pipe. They found their company. And they launch a Better Neighbors tool. It's a way to help people who kind of co-own buildings together keep tabs on each other and keep track of all of the fun tasks and activities they do owning the building, like shoveling the snow and dealing with the plumber. They have this pain point themselves, so they build to solve a problem. So they're about to go out into the world, and then they also get some more advice that they should not pass go until they validate their value proposition. Okay, so they get some more clarity. This is a decision collaboration tool. Who's it for? Building managers, unfair disputes between co-op owners. Why they're better, the differentiation. They're designed for co-ownership, unlike all of the tools out there. Why they're believable, they've got PhDs. Okay, so I take a moment. I know that this is a startup festival where you can go around and pitch and actually get money, right? So I'm sure you already have your value proposition down. Take one moment to just think about your value prop, the current reality of right now or your very next step of your very current or near future value proposition. And just kind of rest in that moment, okay? The key thing that helps with this little ad lib is I get to the number one follow-up question right away that you'll get from investors and mentors and advisors, which is, what is the pain point you're solving for? When you see the furrowed brows of people not understanding you, it's because they're not easily getting. It seems like something that's a nice to have or a simple idea. And even if you tell me you have the pain, I don't see how that transfers to other people. And why is pain so important? Pain is the actual oxygen that gets you lifted off the ground from being not a thing to someone switching to your thing, competing with inertia. Okay, we're going to start there. They go out and they validate. Turns out this was not a pain. This is a problem some people have. But it wasn't a pain big enough that someone was going to hire a software solution to help. A decision and collaboration tool, not a solution to any known pain. They couldn't even go anywhere with it. The PhD thing turned out wasn't all that relevant after all in this particular market, and therefore the differentiation didn't matter. This happens. This is normal. You usually are totally wrong on multiple of these points when you first start out. But just know that your first step is to anchor yourself. The pivot is knowing what your current situation is actually going to be before you take the next step. So then they get the investment advice to have a big addressable market. Previous speaker, Alistair, said that's hooey. You're going to create a market. And yeah, that's true. But still, people want to kind of like eyeball it. Good analysts, financial analysts like myself, like to eyeball, okay, approximately how many people? We can figure this out right now. Turned out their early company had a big, they're claiming a big market, but this on-ramp they decided, the first wedge, it didn't seem like it was really a wedge. It wasn't really getting in there. So it's just a check, a moment. Think about it. Does your first value proposition, that first customer base, maybe you're picking the early adopter, maybe not. Is that use case something that's transferable? Who's the next customer? And the next customer after that. Part of this is your decision criteria to know, am I on the right path? Not just the validation you're doing with customers. They bumble into a demo day. They're a little early for that, but they say, whatever, it'll take us, give us some energy, give us some practice. They get some advice. Who knows this guy? Simon Sinek. Okay, he says, start with why. They get this, they get all pumped up, they practice, and they say they're going to transform the world to a regenerative circular economy. Ooh. Is this a good idea? I mean, it depends. Sometimes, well, not in their case. Sometimes, depending on the context that you're in, you need to go to the why first. Often, when you're in like California, the Bay Area, they love start with why. They don't like the airy-fairy kind of whys, but they like the big, multi-billion-dollar, take over the world kind of ideas. I hear that Montreal's changed a bit, but for a long time, just like in my hometown, New York City, there are a lot of investors who have a narrower field of vision. They kind of want to know when you're going to get to revenue and when you're going to get to break even. They might even give you the opposite advice of investors in the West Coast. I've seen this in Europe, parts of China, Japan, parts of Africa, and all around town, this future is uneven but unevenly distributed advice. Some people saying, break even by next December. And other investors saying, what are you doing thinking about profitability? You must spend into growth. Go on your next capital raise. So the key answer here is start with why when you know you're in the right context. These kids, they demoed their idea. Turned out there were mostly those sort of more old school investors in the room, and they got totally shot down. Okay, so logic is in the eye of a logician. Also know valuation is a mostly local context storytelling game. Some of these ideas have been distributed, and you'll find Montreal investors who have seen the light, but not that the California ideas are better, just in the last 10 years they've been right. It's called the Bay Area NYC arbitrage, where East Coast investors look at one business and have a low valuation, but West Coast investors give it a multiplier of 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times more value. And in the last 10 years, that's been directionally right. But not the 3 years before 2000, and maybe not the next 10 years, but they're on a momentum. Okay, so now we have some founder conflict. This team, I don't know if you've been there yourself, they get some negative feedback in the market. They don't know what step to take next. Who's been there? You get negative feedback, founder conflict. I'm getting some wry smirks and smiles and nervous. I've been there. Where to pivot? This is like a deep emotional decision. It's not just analytical. So we're going to start with your true north. I love being in Canada because I'm closer to the North Pole, closer to the true north. I feel like that's why Canadians are more honest. You're just closer. It's just, again, it's geographical. Okay, so this is the moment where we take the pause. So you're sitting in an imaginary fat boy. We're going to chill out. And we're going to do some sharing. So just heads up, I might ask you to come up. I might even call on you. Assume you get the money and the customers and the resources and the people and the data and the whatever you need to build the business. Set a time frame. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, depending on what you're making. What happened and how did the world change? Take a moment, sketch something out, get away from the MVP, and tell us what happened. Okay, this is the music. Do, 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 do. And some of you are looking up. So who would love to share? I'll repeat for the video your vision. So try to make it something that I can understand. And this is Startupfest, so there are grandmothers here. That means that grandmothers will have to understand it. Okay, who wants to go? Yes, please. Out from the forest.
Smoker, you can tell. I was just coughing. So my product is a pocket ashtray because one of the biggest trash in the world is caused by cigarette butts. So I came up with a pocket ashtray made out of recycled materials, and yeah, I want to change the world. I just want to eliminate cigarette waste. So.
Okay, so if it's 5-10 years from now. Oh, I'm talking to this thing. 5-10 years from now.
Yeah.
How is our world better because of pocket ashtrays?
Well, we've eliminated the concept of cigarette waste by installing recycling system. And yeah.
Yeah. 5-10 years from now. Anyone else want to help build or add? Yeah. The world will be cleaner. The world will be cleaner.
Sorry. Okay, you're talking vision. Okay,
Yeah.
A cleaner environment, no cigarette butts on the street, no visual pollution, cleaner oceans. Yeah.
The world will be cleaner. Okay, we're going to rest with that. That's the grandma answer. Thank you. Thank you, grandma advisors. We should have the grandmas in here. They're really good positioning experts. Okay, anybody else want to go? Yes.
Okay, so this is not a tech. It's not a product.
Never apologize for
okay.
not being tech.
Great. So I have worked in fundraising for the last 7 years, and actually fundraising needs a business model. This is nonprofit fundraising in the States. And so what I want, because they're usually going in all directions, they're trying to approach all different kinds of funders, and what they really need is to have a business model. This has been a concept that's been kind of elaborated at an abstract level, but not really put into practice. So my vision for 5 to 10 years is that that this could actually increase like percentage of GDP that nonprofits are. It's been like a flat 2% of GDP. So maybe we grow it to 3-4%, and we cut into like some consumption, discretionary consumption, by having really sharp business model.
Okay, so you actually transform nonprofits to go from 2% of GDP. That's U.S. and Canada too?
U.S. I only know
in the U.S. right now. So 2% of GDP goes to nonprofit activity, and we're going to go to like 3 or even 4%.
Yeah.
And some of that might even having real business models for nonprofits where they're cutting into
Fundraising
consumer
business
discretionary
model.
spending, which in grandma speak means?
Let's see. Like, I'm trying to think of something that I don't think is very, I don't know, just apps maybe that you're buying, or extra clothes, or just crap.
Less fast fashion, more nonprofit giving.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, that's a good world. I want to live in that world. Do we have any more? Yeah.
Starting with a credit card directed for founders and startups, we are reducing the mortality of early companies, especially for the small and medium business in Latin America. After 5 years of getting fund and a right product, we see the GDP share of these kind of companies has grown from 50% to 70%, and therefore the economy in Latin America has grown 6% rate instead of 1% rate.
Okay. And so the grandma story there, if you meet a grandma here, how is a grandma bettered by this in 5 years? How's her life better?
She can see the people and neighborhoods around are growing better due to having financial access, which now is constrained for bigger companies. So overall...
So smaller local businesses.
Exactly.
Thriving.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not just the big giant companies and the bank on the corner.
by receiving these financial opportunities that currently they don't have
Okay.
due to lack of information, access, or whatever. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, I'm splitting some metaphors. This very story you tell a grandma is not necessarily the story you tell Elon Musk, should he ask. Not the same thing. Actually, those are different goggles to put on. Okay, great. So thanks. We can keep going. I will be around all day if you want to tell me your stories. Okay, so this is your Truenorth. It's and hopefully in language we can all understand. Here's some fun ones. And cancer, live forever on Mars. There's more than one billionaire who says that that's their mission. Create a world where people work to make a life, not just a living. That's we work. Some of these things are like really out there. Our friends Blurg, they say they want to have a world where buildings are net zero energy. Okay, that works a little better. Building managers losing money from energy overuse. They're tapping into financial constraints of being a building manager. It's the thing that people care about today. They don't want to listen to the word like sustainability in New York City. They want to listen to it's a money town. They want profitability. They want to manage behavior change solutions to get that to happen. So they sort of launch. Now they're off. They have SaaS. They provide some free data. It's a little bit like Looker, where they do something with your data first and they give you some value in a few short minutes. They launch, they've got this nice business model going, and choosing your first business model, like don't get too agitated about it. You don't have to keep it forever. You can actually kill it. That's one thing you learn from all of this is it's another reason why people fear business model choice is they think it might be the only thing left. It has to describe the whole business. But as you've seen, many companies evolve and move on from there. So they launch this energy consumption solution, and then it's time to create options. So what other value propositions, what other actions you can take in progressing in this game, moving fast through this game, is thinking through how you might level up to new markets, customers. Those are the obvious answers. Value propositions, of course, but actions that you can take to unlock new business models. It's always good to test to make sure there's a pain point there in a customer base. They think they could maybe they think crazily, prefab housing, when they get outside of New York City. Home energy monitoring, disrupt Nest. Energy company data analytics, maybe there's a massive market in there. They start to test and they talk to their local energy supplier. Maybe build towards an energy marketplace. What can you do now that sets you in motion for ambitious aims later? This is the biggest business model decision to make. What actually steps you up later? That's how to help choose which model to start with. Flatiron Health, it's a company that's already gone through an exit. I saw it up close and personal, NYC, software to accelerate cancer research, improve treatment outcomes, or oncologists, researchers, and pharma. Okay, granted, they walk in with luck already on their side. They'd already exited a giant ad tech company to Google before they started, but had no experience in the space whatsoever. They marinate on the problem, where everybody else is launching and going straight to the fancy academic research hospitals. They go out into the field and they get the local community practice manager, where most people get their cancer care, not in the giant hospitals in Boston, but out in their local hometowns. They provide a simple, humble return on investment solution to practice managers. They don't promise a marketplace. They don't promise an end to cancer. They don't promise precision medicine because they're not ready to deliver it yet. You've heard in marketplaces there's the kind of single player mode. They figure out what that single player mode is. They get users, they get data. They get enough momentum, they go ask for $100 million to buy an electronic medical record company. You don't have to build everything yourself. You can buy, if you have a good narrative, good pedigree, good track record, you can sometimes progress through the game through acquisitions. They launch, every farmer wants to work with them, see their insights, pay a premium. They get a partnership from Roche. All along, they talk about earning the rights to be the precision medicine marketplace of the future. Most recently, they've launched a clinical trial finder app, but they go, and not that this is the point of the game, in 6 quick years, from founding to $2 billion exit, by masterfully making some key choice business model moves and unlocking as they grow. Now, they're living inside of a big pharma right now, and that might eclipse their ultimate North Star. And some might say, who cares when you have that much cash? But I say, actually, no. If their aim was to truly redefine the rules of the game, they've got to keep trying harder. So how can you hire into growth? What can you explore? When do you exploit? And can you skip steps? Here's our friends Splurg and what they do. So now we want to look at your reserves, courage over capital. So actually, I'm going to go back and say, let's look at our options. What options do you think you could take to accelerate your move from your current value proposition to your vision in the future? What is the next option you might take? What business model had you not considered? What wild idea? Moving from digital to physical, moving from physical into digital, going from B2B to B2C, unlocking a new market. Take this time in this warming tent today to decide where you might want to go next. Map out some options. All right, I don't know if anyone's ready to go. So we heard some vision. I'm going to ask you this time around to, you don't have to tell us the whole company story. Just quickly, who's it for? Current value proposition. The grandma answer, and only the grandma answer to the vision. And a step that you might take along the way there. Your next possible step. Who would like to share? It didn't go last time, maybe. Yes, please.
So my product is virtual meditation, so 360 goggles, so you're actually out in nature. So instead of being augmented reality, it's actual reality of being at the ocean or in the mountains. And an option for me would be bought out by Oculus or another company.
You're going to buy Oculus away from Facebook. Nice.
There we go.
Okay.
And then the future would be that grandparents and so the grandma that can't actually get out of her lodge or wherever she's living can go back and have memories of being on a farm or by the ocean by putting on her meditation goggles and having a guided relaxation exercise and meditation.
Okay. So wait, it's reality in a headset. So you're looking at
360 goggles.
360 real images.
So it's like you're at the ocean.
Okay,
so
like you're at the ocean.
Yeah, you can look up or around or in the
Don't
forest.
actually have to be there.
Yeah.
Okay. So we did the fun thing. We said you're going to buy Oculus away from Facebook. Could happen.
I said they were going to acquire me.
Oh, they're going to acquire you.
Yes, they're going to acquire me.
Okay. So one recommendation is exit is when you get off the game. Game's over. Which is fine. It's good. You know, sometimes there's an earn out and you hang around. But know that the game is over when that happens. Again, I've had it happen. It happens. It's good. Some people pat you on the back, even say that you're a genius for doing it.
Or
but it's not actually an action that you're taking. What action might you take to get you towards that vision that you described to us?
Just to create my own business is better than Oculus.
Okay, so you're going to create the one that's better. And do you have your own headset?
Well, I think for it to be more available for different populations, I'm okay if people have different headsets. But I think the big thing is more of the real nature immersion versus augmented reality is the big difference.
What kind of partner might you get? One that might even help you just grab attention for what you're doing. What kind of nonprofit organization or person might help you?
The main area I'm interested in initially is more in the healthcare area.
Yeah.
So in hospitals, people that are in pain and are stuck in hospital for months at a time, people with disabilities, seniors.
Okay.
So
is there a hospital partner that might help you validate this? Is that something you're looking to do?
Yeah, I'm working with a company right now that does quite a bit of work within the healthcare area.
Yeah.
So to continue.
So maybe even partner with someone. Don't get too tainted by the hospital system. Just go dip your toe. See, I ran into a very similar value proposition a month ago in New York that was already doing evidence base for meditation in the emergency rooms for kids with specifically VR. It wasn't 360 real. Mm-hmm. So it's happening. And so the big question is, how might you push forward on your vision to get there?
Yeah, I definitely am more interested in the B2B initially.
Yeah.
So to really find some businesses that really want to get into including this as part of the organization.
Yeah.
And then expanding from there to more of the general public.
Okay.
So go to B2B initially.
All right. So B2B is their first business model and move on from there.
Yeah, and more in the healthcare area.
Okay.
Initially.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for the exit. It's an obvious and wonderful thing, but remember, it's not you that's exiting.
Yeah, so thank you for that feedback.
To remember
change
that
direction.
this is just it's an embodied experience. Business modeling, it's in your body. You can if you do this work frequently, you'll see your value proposition is here. You're describing the future. You wound up in this kind of stretched position. It's a good position to be in. It means you're not too myocular and down here. You're not just kind of blinders on and in execution mode. You're stretching far and wide and figuring out what's next.
Yeah, and definitely my future vision is just that people have more inner peace, less anxiety, less stress, and that would bring more peace to the world.
That feels good. I want that future too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Yes, you had your hand up last time. I would like to hear.
Yes, thank you. Our start of our value proposition, we are developing an alternative financial trust score.
Yeah.
Basically, is to help improve fairness and also financial inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the clientele actually is more people who doesn't have enough data to be scored by Equifax and all those other people. Mm-hmm. So the vision is to connect the world to share financial trust, because it's not just here. In a lot of places around the world, there's this situation. The option that we are looking presently around it is definitively, there's a lot of debate coming in here in Canada regarding systemic discrimination. Mm-hmm. So we are planning to be joining inside the debate to put it as an option within the society as part of our way of attracting attention. Secondly, we are presently in discussion with some of the leading banks on microfinance, because there's still a lot of people who are underserved, who are outside of the financial system. So the two ways that we are looking at it now is to partner with banks so that we can build on their network. And secondly, also the other option that we are looking is because it's also a social issue. We are looking also to be involved in the debate that will be coming on as part of the election or as part of the debate that are ongoing inside the society. Because, for example, a simple example is to get an apartment, you need a credit score.
Right.
But how is
So this is lack of credit score, how you build. You said you're going to connect people and build networks. Is it through your social networks to prove trustworthiness, something like that?
Something simple, an alternative score that will be, because that's also the challenge also. Yep. Most people doesn't understand where it's come from and why they're penalized, and sometimes it's kind of unfair. So our approach is something simple to understand and easy to share. And the ambition at the long term is to connect the world. Because if you live here and you go to let's say in London, you need to start from scratch. Yep. So, those are the type of...
this transverses the world.
Exactly.
Connect the world is Facebook's vision, just FYI.
Connecting the world through shared financial trust.
Much better. Okay.
It's not connecting the world, it's connecting the world through shared financial trust. Exactly.
Okay, that's a good world. Now your options, you're talking about making this a social issue, partnering with banks. Can this thing live without the banks? Is that possible?
Yes, the ambition is to flip. Yeah. Because actually it's more, the business model of the bank is centralized on them. Yeah. Now we want to flip it. That's why we actually want also to be partnering with the bank who work in microfinance sector. Banks, because that microfinance sector have a more human, more flexible, more attract around.
Okay, so not just any giant bank, but banks that work in microfinance.
Exactly. And we are discussing with some of them actually who seem to be kind of having our ear.
And how do you make the decision to partner versus build your own bank?
How do we?
Yeah, have you decided to make your own thing without the partner, like just to go it without the partner?
But the ambition also is because it's we want to create a kind of we want to help people own their score instead of
it being
waiting
by...
and being owned by other people. So that's a bit how we want to flip the game. Yeah. And actually to own it also, there's a lot of advantage in the sense that there's a big game about data, who own it, who doesn't own it, but you own it. So actually you can be able to leverage it. But that's we don't want to become a bank, but we want to empower people so that they can use it and leverage it. But to go through, the partnership with the bank is the fact that they already have those network of microfinance service who have that culture. Right. And building on that culture, we can then reach those people. Right. And with the debate who will coming out on the election and many other things, it's also a platform where people are looking for solutions. For example, the city of Montreal is going through a debate around some of those issues of systemic discrimination. So it's also a platform where we hope to be able to engage.
So I'm going to compare it to strangely Netflix, but like they rode this wave of DVD adoption. You're going to ride the wave of this big social, cultural, gigantic question mark about how people build credit scores.
How people build assets also.
How they build assets.
Because to build assets, you have to pass through credit.
And how social justice happens in finance.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a big cultural moment. So we want to help. This vision is a very powerful vision. We want to help to make sure everyone here can help you tell your story really well. Are you already in business?
Yes, I thought I have an MVP, but
okay. So you have an MVP?
Yeah, and I'm discussing with few people actually.
Okay.
You know, I have engaged with some cooperative, you know, habitation and all those other elements. But here is only how do you leverage and move from your MVP to the beta and
exactly.
Then,
okay. And so just so we can all help you tell the story, your beta version is what?
The
beta version. It's for who and what is it?
Oh, the beta version is intended for people who doesn't have enough data to be scoreable.
Okay, so again, specifically for banks and microfinance. Is that
right?
No,
it's for people. It's
for actual consumers.
Actual consumer.
Who don't yet have a good credit score.
Exactly. Who don't yet have, or who are not happy about it. Okay. And in Canada, it's 6 million, and in US, 45 million.
Yeah, it's
data
a lot.
Around it.
It's a lot. US is always better at the worst stats.
Exactly. Yes. So those are the people that we are looking, mostly in the big town.
Okay.
And we are looking to entering also through social housing.
Okay.
Because that's where the pool of that type of people are coming also.
I'm taking this in. I really wanted to hear it because I wanted to hear, I asked you to talk about your next option, but we almost overlooked the fact that you're launching. It's a consumer-free version. It's like you're doing this for free or someone's going to pay for it. Or...
I mean, somebody's going to pay. I start checking around. People are willing.
Yeah.
They're comparing with Equifax. So the rate of the amount will be there, but they still work on the tech side, of course, to be able to deliver it. But there's a willingness to pay. Definitely.
Equifax for good.
Because they are comparing it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
it's
so
like Spotify for energy, Equifax for that is good.
Exactly. So, I mean, the ambition is to have that alternative score.
All right. So you're going to launch with this beta to consumers. You're going to look for the microfinance banks specifically to get greater penetration, captivate this big social cultural conversation, and reach into this future where the 6 million people in Canada and the 45 million people down south.
And around the world.
And around the world, there's even more. Yeah.
Even more.
Lots and lots, billions.
Exactly. But you need to get on the other side.
And you have to start somewhere. Okay, really great. All right, so we can all help tell that story, I hope. So notice what we're doing here. We're not, again, the MVP, we can get a little tired, a little exhausted, constantly taking things off the table and focusing. So previous speaker, Alistair, said do 1 day working on your business, 4 days developing and things like that. Similarly for this, make sure you've carved out at least an hour or two a week. Again, you can scrape it off in those times before bed if you don't listen to podcasts. That's my favorite time. Put away the phone, but don't fall asleep with ear pods. Don't do it. To think about these very questions. How might you stretch? How might you get there? What business models might you unlock? And we all know that there's the unknown unknown of creating a new market that hadn't yet existed before, which will be required if you take on Equifax, which I hope you do. I think everybody here hopes. Yeah, it's very resonant, very, very much in this room that we want you to take that particular Goliath on. All right, I think we have time for one more. I hope you're finding this valuable. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Salil, and I'm a founder of a startup that actually takes old archive video and through AI and machine learning makes it look nice and colorful for today's viewing.
Great.
So that's the first part. And the second thing we can also do is help media houses reduce the post-production time, because that's actually an activity they do once the footage is done. Mm-hmm. So we can help reduce that time. So that's what my startup does.
And where's the grandma vision?
The grandma vision of it, honestly, she's not the target
I
audience.
know, but still,
But the grandma vision.
some of us have grandmas. We want to tell them about your business.
Yeah, but the grandma vision is they can relive the memories from 60s, 70s, 80s, the old footage that was shot.
Yeah.
They can relive those memories as if they were shot now. So you can, go back in the days you grew up in, and actually have the same feeling. You are not looking at the same old, resolution,
Yeah.
pixelated photos and videos, and you live the moment.
Do you help me preserve what is like trapped in old cassettes?
Yeah, so if we do the digitizing part
Yeah.
of it, like we take the digitized version of that video, but that's the easy part. If something is in a cassette or a video, putting it on a computer in a digital format,
Yeah.
that's the easy part that many people do it.
Right.
But now taking that
And making
and making it look as if it was shot yesterday,
Okay.
right? What was called digitally remastering it. So we remaster it, and it can be done today,
Yeah.
but experts do it, and it's way expensive to get it done.
So grandma herself will be able to digitally remaster her videos of her wedding from the 80s or 70s or 60s.
Absolutely. One
Okay.
click. All you do is upload your video. Few minutes later, you see a beautiful version of
I
it.
think grandma likes that. Yes. Do we agree? Grandma, there's any grandmas in the room? You're even getting some claps. Nice. That
Thank
is
you.
totally a grandma story. Okay.
Thank you.
And now let's peel it back. Right
Yeah.
now, you're building this direct to consumer. You might do it for production studios.
Yeah, so we have a B2B version of it. We are live.
You're starting in B2B.
We're starting with B2B, and our target companies or our target customers are large media houses.
Okay.
So one of the top 3 priorities for large media houses is they're sitting on a ton of archive footage already, and they want to monetize that. So we already have a partner in the US that we're working with, and that's where we want to go. The next 1 year, a good story for us would be if we partner with one of the larger media production houses like CNN
Okay.
or the bigger ones. And then there's a separate 5-year story that we have.
So if you've got those major production houses and there's some N number of video hours that you're going to digitize,
Right.
is your key focus for the next year.
That's right.
And then let's look out in 3 years. What crazy thing happens that catapults you into some kind of dominant position where grandma is able to digitize her 1970s wedding video?
Yeah, so 3 years later, where we want to go from here is the tools that are required to do this process. You literally have to have them on your computer.
Yeah.
Your computer needs to be a $5,000 computer. Those are,
The fancy Macs, the fancy tricked out
absolutely.
towers, or that used to be towers. Yes.
Absolutely, you're right. 3 things have happened in the last few years that makes it possible for us to do it, and a grandma can do it on her computer or any creative. One is automation and AI. So you really don't need to know every single knob you need to turn. You really don't need to know every single small little, tool, how this will change. That beautification part is taken care of. That's number 1. The number 2 thing is the hardware.
Yeah.
We can do it in the cloud with GPUs. And then the number 3 thing, these 2 still existed a few years ago, but number 3 is the bandwidth is much cheaper, and with 5G, video streaming and all of that.
5G, yes.
So all 3 come together
Yeah.
to actually make it possible in 2019, and this literally couldn't have been done in 17, even maybe 18.
Okay, you just did a great thing. What's your name?
Salil?
Salin.
Yeah.
Okay, Salin. Thank you. That was excellent, especially because you got to the grandma thing, even though you didn't think you would. But also because you did something that's really critical when you are telling your business model story. And you notice he said 3 things that are, I'm going to paraphrase, recently true, recently possible. Technology has recently changed. That's a good way to dethrone dominant logic that might be in the mindset of your customer or your investor who might not be there with you yet. You're building this future and you see the opportunity, but they're like, I don't know. I've seen this idea before. I saw it in the 90s. It failed. I lost money. And you can say, well, no, but yes, like pets.com, things have changed. And the reason why businesses from the 90s are being possible now is because the 3 things you just mentioned. And now we have to just believe AI, cheaper hardware and GPUs, and the promise of 5G is for reals.
Yeah. So we need those 3 things to make this business possible today on a product standpoint.
But what's great about that is it's like, that makes me feel like the hunter in me that wants to kind of look out into that field and go after the fish or the bear. There's no bears on this island, are there? Is the same kind of move I want to make when I see 3 things moving in the field quickly. It's the reason why I want to follow up and learn more about this, because something's moving quickly versus something that this could be an opportunity in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, it doesn't matter. right now. So well framed.
Thank
Good
you.
simulation design. Okay. I think that was our last. We're going to keep going and kind of conclude out the session unless there's anybody dying, burning need. I don't want to shut you down. Okay, we got it all out. Oh, great. A dying, burning need. So you're going to round us out with your story.
Hi there, I am Newton. I'm the founder of SoundSearch. What we do is transcribe audio and video files and make them more indexable and searchable for our organization, because previously all this valuable content was hidden within these assets. And once these files were created, they were no longer used or actually referred to again. And I took the mic because one of the valuable partners for us would be Searle, who just pitched.
All right, you guys are already partnering.
Exactly.
You're in each other's growth maps. Awesome.
That's right. So he's remastering audio and video content,
Got it.
and we use our AI speech engine to transcribe and summarize those content, create custom schema, and then manage it for other partners so that, again, these assets are more manageable. The long-term, I guess, vision would be, it would really help with content discovery. So if you want to find anything within a video file or an audio file, you don't know the name, you don't know when it was taken, you could just simply search and you could find it very easily. So yeah, content discovery would be a breeze.
Okay, Grandma.
Something like this.
Grandma. What is Grandma doing?
So grandma does not have to waste her time and would not have to go through the inconvenience of basically remembering where content is. She could just get it.
Replace content with some other word that Grandma actually wants to find.
I guess we have search engine for audio and video content.
Give me an example. Grandma's hard. It's the hardest question.
That's right. So again, we were not thinking about grandma's vision.
There's grandmas here today. You guys have been warned, right? That's the grandma tent. Yeah, there's grandmas here. So get ready.
So I guess content discovery and ease of search.
Okay, you're getting some positioning help over here from David. Adding tags and keywords. Any more help? We'll keep going. Yeah. Relive memories. Grandma's,
okay.
But she's actually going to be able to find a specific memory.
That's right.
And let's just give a super tangible, imagined. Remember, you're a game designer. Simulated example that Grandma might want to find. Wedding video. Finding that moment. What's a good wedding video moment everybody's got? The speech, the cake, the walk, the what? The kiss.
Okay.
The
so
kiss.
reliving memories.
The kiss nailed it.
Yes.
There we go.
So
Grandma's going to be able to find the kiss in her wedding video. And now we go back to the now, and you've got this content tagging thing going on. And what's the next big possible thing after you partner?
So we partner, we process thousands of hours of videos, and again, create these custom content where you have transcriptions, summaries, tags, other attributes that could come in handy when you're searching.
Excellent technical details. What is the next big strategic move you might make to propel you to that future vision where Grandma can find the kiss on her wedding video?
Partner up with media platforms where Grandma would be searching for. Like Dailymotion, Vimeo, because YouTube is already doing that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So big partnership with Vimeo would help you get there faster.
That's correct.
Similar to how Zoom really piggybacked on a whole bunch of other things. Okay. Great. So I want you to notice a couple of things. I don't know if you agree with me, but I find the grandma moment turns out to be your very best elevator pitch, cocktail party conversation, hanging out in a startup tent. Also, you solve the TLDR problem of someone starts talking technical details, and you know what happens to most people, even technical people, when that stuff coming out is what happens? Shut down. You're just okay, I'm going to start scanning the room for the next thing. And so the grandma thing, if you stop and pause and you describe that kiss, you're kind of at least creating a connection where I can then start accessing more of your story. So again, we're talking about business models here, but notice how it's hard to do this work of figuring out where this could go next and not just be a technical feature in a larger system without flexing those muscles and knowing when to flex them. Okay. So we're going to round out with just some thoughts that reflect on our previous speaker and might even, I want to cover a little bit that's being covered right on the other side of the tent about the bootstrap versus funding question. How many of you think that you actually might want to bootstrap this all the way? You've heard this morning all this investor stuff and this expectation of 10x growth. Okay, 1, 2, half hands, 3, 4, 5. Bootstrapping, you just want to own 100% of the thing. You don't want to give up ownership. Okay, there's like a handful of you guys, ladies and gentlemen. Want to. Okay, want to, but don't know if you can is another. Yeah, okay, want. Okay, so who would want to bootstrap all the way? Oh, look at all that go up. Interesting, data points. Yeah, okay, so there's a zebra movement, there's a B Corp movement, there's all these folks saying, is there another way? Could we just maybe grow without having to take that high stakes 10x, go big or go home investment capital? I've felt that before also. I've even tried to start a company just to think about that, and then I started it at the wrong moment, 2008. This big pregnant. I had customers, I had businesses, I had a big lifestyle business, and then I had the rug pulled out from under me, and ended up recapitalizing and getting venture funding and whatever. It all was fine, didn't end up fulfilling my vision. But the key point here is courage plus actions to the power of luck, good timing, is really what helps propel you and gives you that leverage to make better decisions. So I hear the dynamic and energy in the room as we'd all love to bootstrap. Most of us actually would love to be in control. It's a big thing that founders, that's why you're motivated. You don't want someone looking over your shoulder. You would like to have this work, this creation, be something that is yours, that doesn't have second guessers and bad advisors showing up telling you what to do. And all this capital is out there for you to get. So know that your work in flexing these business model muscles, seeing business models everywhere, taking those moments to stretch and flex and be able to tell your story are how you might get there. The bootstrapper raise question is a fascinating one. Of course, you also can do, the crowdfunding and grants thing. Like, don't overlook those if those are possible in your current location. But there really is a big difference when you jump forward to the public market. Some key things, context matters. So this bootstrap question, for those that had a high hand held very high, that they're going to bootstrap or die, know that what really determines the answer to that question is the context you're in, physically, in the world. What market are you in? How likely is it that disruptors will come in to get you? Are you dependent on a platform? Are you building off of Facebook or Google or something else? Because then they're defining the rules of your game. So if you're thinking you've got this nice little business running off of a platform, no, and please study the businesses that have been quickly turned off by Twitter and Facebook and things like this. How competitive is the environment from a customer perspective, but more importantly from a funding perspective? If what you're doing is awesome and you get a lot of noise and you're beautifully self-funding, you will attract in this market, in this funding market, copycats who will say, these two kids out of Stanford, we're going to give them $12, now $50 million. And so a good gut check, those that said, I'm going to bootstrap all the way, is just to ask yourself the question, how would you feel if someone else with less skill, less heart, less savvy, raised the 200 million and just simply outspent you on marketing? And that it happened to work. Like, how does that make you feel? Okay, I'm seeing the yes, okay. And so it's not to say, I'm not telling you that investor path is the way to go. I'm saying this work of business modeling in order to become the game controller, to get your hands on the controls, is to be a business model designer, meaning you have to have the full flex and capability to be able to bootstrap for sure, get that leverage, get that customer revenue, get that retention high, 98%, 112%, get that lifetime value massive, $200, $4,000. Keep your cost of customer acquisition super low, not some silly 1-to-3 ratio, but even better. Like, master that domain. It will give you leverage. But know that the game is already set for you, and if you're really going to master it, you have to become a supermodeler. Modeling can help figure out when you access those sources of capital and gives you the best deal points if you're actually able to make the best decisions along the way. Okay, and we know that recurring revenue gives leverage. So models can help us predict the future we want to see. That is the purpose of models. That's the whole point of we are in a simulation. So to win in this game, We're going to see the systems levers. Some of you in this world, in this room, in this tent right now, have taken on massive, wicked problems, big, complicated systems, social justice in your actual vision statement. These are huge, huge aims. And I find that the startups of today are now getting underneath the surface. There was that fun era we just went through, this recurring revenue era. I believe the next step is not some crypto business model thing. Sure, that's possibility space and the unknown unknowns of what's next. It's using this work of business modeling to get underneath the business models that have already shaped this world around us and reconfiguring them and redesigning them for better measured outcomes. So you're going to go out there into Montreal if we ever figure out how to get off this island. Has anyone figured that out yet? Are we at the Fire Festival? Who's got the glamp tent? Who's got the glamp tent? Okay. So you're going to go back to Montreal and see business models everywhere and everything that you're doing. This is the, like, look up from your phone every now and then and see if you can figure out how this world is working, what models drive everything that we're doing. You can come visit me in New York. I'm sometimes there where I live. And we can see business models there together. It's a money town. Business models are everywhere. You don't move in that town without money. So it's often a place where the earliest emergent networked-based business models are born because of the density of the people and their willingness to pay to just move the line a little faster. And to see the intended consequences, meaning non-financial, like customer metrics over discounted cash flow, net present value. Health outcomes are more interesting and kind of super badass over really nice cost of customer acquisition and lifetime value scores. Reversing 350 parts per million. We know what that is, right? Parts per million in the environment is more important and is how we win the game. $10 billion valuation is just a blip along the way. And well-being as a goal in the game over fear of missing out. Okay, so I thank you for your time. This is where to find me. We'll stick around for further one-on-ones. For those I saw you wanting to speak but didn't, but want to have your story heard. We're around. And genius advice that we got from our two media companies here. Tell your story to everyone in the room and see how your stories can build together. Thank you.